Okay, lights, action, camera. The regular school board meeting, August 13th, 2019. Good evening, and we're ready to begin our board meeting. The school board meeting of August 13, 2019 is now called to order. The time is 6:02. At this time, we request that all electronic devices be put in silent mode. Also, we ask that you please refrain from flash photography. The agenda can also be found on the district's website, www.leeschools.net. Navigate to the Leadership tab and choose School Board. We would like to take this opportunity to remind the members of the public of the district's mission, which is to ensure that each student achieves his or her highest personal potential, and the district's vision, which is to be a world-class school system. This evening's agenda includes the invocation, the Pledge of Allegiance, one acknowledgement, public comment, consent action items, which include 4 items under executive services, one of which is good cause. Dr. Atkins, please explain.
The item under good cause, we have a need to bring forward the attorney's fees update in the fee schedule from what the original approval was, and need to get that brought forward expeditiously. The second item for good cause is we received the Sheriff's Department contract, and as you know, we have officers already in places and already in our schools, and we just need to make sure that contract gets executed.
Okay, thank you. And Susan, do you have those? Okay. As presiding officer, I find that there is good cause to add these items to the agenda. There will be 4 items under academic services, 1 item under business services, 1 item under human services, 1 item under information systems, 9 items under operations, 1 of which is good cause. Dr. Atkins, please explain.
The one under operations, I had mentioned the Lee County Sheriff's Department School Resource Officer Program. That is a contract that we just received, signed from the Sheriff's Department, and we wanted to go ahead and get that approved because we already have our officers in those buildings.
Okay. As presiding officer, I find there is good cause to add this one item to the agenda. And 4 items under other business. Board members, is there a motion to adopt the agenda? Ms. Fisher, seconded by Ms. Patrica. Was that right? Was that you? Ms. Morgan, sorry. It's been moved and seconded. Please record your vote. And it passes 7-0. This evening, Ms. Jordan will deliver the invocation, after which Ms. Vaughn will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise for the invocation and the pledge.
Please bow your head. God of all creations, we come before you today to give you honor and praise. You are worthy of praise. You are the source of all that is good. You are the source of all of our blessings. Thank you for every gift that we have been given. We thank you for the opportunity to come and gather today with us. We ask for your hand of blessings on this meeting. We ask that you guide and direct us in this meeting so that we have the wisdom to be productive and respect one another. Thank you for helping us to accomplish our work and our goal on this day. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. I am very glad that school is starting because we soon will have a student representative up here, but for now I will read the character word for August. It's responsibility. Accountability for your personal choices, obligations, and duties. And the quote is, "The price of greatness is responsibility," by Winston Churchill. The design that you see displayed on the screen was created by Emily Fasanella, now a 12th grade student at Estero High School. Thank you for that. Now we will move into public comment. And before I do, I'm going to make a little statement that has to do with not only the board, but those that make comments. I was out at quite a few schools in the last couple of weeks, and I went to some open houses. I went to church on Sunday, and one of the fathers came up to me of one of the students and said, "I just want you to know that children are watching you." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yes, you were at my daughter's school for her open house, and she was so proud to say, 'Oh, I know Miss Gittens. She goes to our church, and she's a Christian just like me.'" I said, "Okay, raise the bar." Well, yeah. I say that story so that all of us, even if you're standing here or here, wherever you're standing or seated and you're speaking, there's a child watching you. And with that in mind, we'll move on to public comment. Mr. Gabriel, please address the agenda item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. School board policy provides the opportunity at this point in the meeting to address the board concerning any matter on the meeting's agenda or any other matter relevant to the operation of the school district. If you completed a card and submitted it before the meeting began, you will be called in the order of the card submitted. If you did not submit a card but still wish to address the board this evening, Ms. Gittens, the board chair, will give you an opportunity in a moment to express that desire. The rules concerning comment are posted at the back of the room. The board does not respond during public comment time to remarks made by speakers. At the end of the public comment period, the board chair will address the assignment of any concerns or requests made during public comment to the superintendent. Speakers and those attending the meeting are expected to act in a respectful manner. Attacks on individuals or abusive comments are prohibited. In addition, clapping, booing, hissing are prohibited. Speakers who fail to follow these rules regarding quorum should be ruled out of order. Any speaker continuing with such remarks will be required to relinquish the lectern per Board Policy 1.11. Time per speaker today will be 3 minutes. Madam Chair, I have 7 cards.
Thank you. And before calling on the cards, is there anyone to my left that has not filled out a card that would like to speak? Anyone on the right? Okay, would you...
Lori, thank you.
Okay. Okay, please begin, Mr. Gabriel.
Thank you. The first speaker is Randy Scott.
I wasn't going to attend today, but I was at a court hearing where an 18-year-old girl was crying, remembering what this school district did to her when she was 12 years old. So I thought that I'd better show up and remind you that this is about the children. And there are 2 children, Layla Aiken and Elena Tamplin, that can't hear your message, Chair Gittens. And the reason they can't hear your message is because as Roger Lloyd sat in this area during the bus school safety, he confessed that the school buses are supposed to have stops that are 50 feet from the corner. In addition, the state statutes are perfectly clear that a hazardous bus stop is defined when the children do not have a 3-foot path off of the road to walk to the bus stop. So you have 2 dead children who can't hear what I'm saying today. And I think that is based on the ignorance of the board. When I say ignorance, I'm not attacking you, your mental state. I'm attacking your physical state of ignoring what's important. You're enjoying the festivities, You're enjoying the crowds, you're enjoying the acclamations, you're enjoying all the socializations that you now have, and you're forgetting about 2 dead children. And I know that I've reported this to you before, and you want to ignore it. And I think that's a shame. At the last meeting, Ms. Gittens, you talked about transparency, and you think it's very important to give your comments to individuals once they have their say up here. I don't think that's transparency. I think that's the last word. You mentioned fallacy. I am addressing the comments to the board. And as the attorney, under Robert Rules of Order, there's been no call by the board members, your boss, for you to interrupt.
Please address your comments to the board as a whole, not to the individuals.
And so, Chairman of the board, you said that what I stated last time was a fallacy. It's not a fallacy. You have a contract, a settlement that requires you to behave in a certain way in alliance with Dr. Atkins. It requires that if you don't behave that way, that you are going to...
Okay, I'm going to have to interrupt you because that is a personal attack, and
No.
if you can address,
It's not a personal attack.
sir, it is, and
No, it's
it has
not.
happened before.
It's a settlement contract that...
Sir, your comments are
It does not
concluded.
contain anything with the whole board. That is a
Time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, the next person, Louis Navarone. I probably mispronounced that, sorry. I can only read what I can tell. Sir?
You have, before we start, don't you have a thing where we can show the public some of our documentation, like the City of Cape Coral?
No, sir, we do not. Your comment time is expiring. Please speak. Please present.
Good evening, Superintendent, Gwynn, and Board. Few things. I think there should be substitute liability insurance. And I've discussed that with Marvin. I told him he should have a strike. Why should we have to work as a sub, and if we get in trouble, we have no liability? I still owe $130,000 on my home at 74 years old because I taught single and I took care of my wife and son. You know, teaching doesn't pay anyway, as you well know. And Gwynn, you said I had tenacity, and I really appreciate that on that bogus tax stuff. Well, as soon as I sue the City of Cape Coral Police for that bogus burglary arrest, I'll do the issue of ethics with us, because you have never answered, and the board has never answered my question, but we will get to it. If I was sitting in that chair, no thanks to the Cape Coral cops, I'd have this school board running like a well-tuned Lexus. As soon as I'm sorry, I came to talk about Layla Aikens as well. The lights were never fixed. I did a complete presentation to the City of Cape Coral, and I've written a letter to the LCEC. That's what I wanted to show you, because they expect us to phone in broken lights. And the light was broken or burned out when Layla was killed. Now, I don't know what the City of Cape Coral will do. It's not the school board's fault. It's LCEC. And I sent a copy of this letter also to Mr. and Mrs. Aikens. That's sad. That is really sad. And I could read it, but I don't know how much time. Oh, I got a little time. Anyway, I sent them the photos. I'd like you to see the photos. This is the light photo that was burned out. Now they put an LED up there when Layla was killed. I've got page after page of lights. This is my favorite. A light that the lens has fallen off, and then you go look, because their procedure is you got to call them in and tell them. Okay, you got to call them in and tell them, this light doesn't even have a sticker on it to claim. That one does. That's ridiculous. Anyway, we'll take care of that with the City of Cape Coral. But I agree, you know. Anyway, I hope you're going to give the teachers a decent pay raise. I taught here 38 years. And like I said, I have a cheap pension. I'm 74, and I'm still paying off a mortgage. Shame on the state of Florida and the Lee County School Board. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Candace Robertson James.
Good evening to the superintendent, the board, and Chair Giddens. As an educator, public health professional, and one who seeks to promote positive communication among students, parents, and teachers, I believe confidence enables children to excel. However, children frequently experience bullying, stress, and traumas that influence their perceptions of themselves. Consistent positive messages play an integral role in the development of a healthy self-concept. School districts such as yours have a great opportunity to provide messages of self-worth and value while encouraging children of all ages to identify their gifts as you execute your motto of developing personal, passionate, and progressive beings. I'm excited to inform you that I have authored a book entitled Reflections of Me, Inspiring the Superhero Within, in order to encourage children to identify and own their gifts, talents, and skills, and to facilitate conversations between adults and children related to self-esteem. The book was inspired by research exploring the role of discrimination in health, where multiple adult women shared messages of self-worth they wish they had heard as children. Because children are constantly exposed to negative, self-defeating images and messages, developing a sense of identity and understanding who they are can be a daunting task. The goal of this book is to inspire the development of a healthy concept, even in a world where differences may not be celebrated, values may be challenged, and dysfunctional social norms are promoted. This evening, I would like to present a copy of Reflections of Me to you and hope that you would consider it a useful resource in your schools to facilitate important conversations with your students. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Kevin Daly.
Good evening, Chair Gittens, Dr. Atkins, and board members. My name is Kevin Daly, and I'm the president of the Teachers Association of Lee County and a very happy parent of 2 students who were able to go back to school this week, so thanks. Get them something to do during the day. I want to rise tonight just to talk about, because I know you guys sometimes talk about where you've been and the good things you've seen, and I just wanted to rise tonight to talk about what we had the opportunity to do in our office on the first day of school, which was go to Franklin Park Elementary and participate in the Gentleman's Walk at Michelle Freeman School. Ms. Jordan, you were there. Dr. Atkins, you were there. We also had our state president came down from Tallahassee for this event and then went back. So it was just a really powerful, positive way to start the school. And you know, it was the one we were invited to, and I'm sure that all other 99 locations had, you know, similar events with a really positive aspect and a really positive start to the school year. So I just wanted to get up here and share that with you and share the positive things that are happening. And kind of as an aside, if you're going to run like a well-oiled car as a union president, I'd prefer it to be an American one. Thanks.
All of you have read my emails regarding the investigation's findings and the nearly $10,000 spent on this investigation. My daughter and I are grateful to the 4 of you who have offered support in this situation, but tonight I am asking all of you to take action. The report contains false information. You discussed this briefly Thursday during your workshop, but you failed to give Dr. Adkins a clear directive. Tonight I am asking that you make a motion to resolve this horrible situation. The report states clearly that cheerleading is a club, not a sport. I verified this with the FHSA and the Florida Department of Education. Sideline cheer is a club. Lee County only has 1 school where it is currently considered a sport. That is the competitive squad at Riverdale. When you go on every high school website in Lee County, cheerleading is listed under a sport. This is confusing because technically it's a club. The report goes further to say that cheer teams do not have coaches, they have sponsors. This is not the way you do things here. Someone needs to be held accountable for the way things are done here. Please answer this question tonight. In Lee County, is sideline cheerleading a club or a sport? After that question is answered, please give Dr. Adkins a clear directive to resolve this issue and the situation that occurred on 4/12/19. To the best of my knowledge and research, on 4/12/19, there was no policy in place mandating who could participate in the club of cheerleading. It did not prohibit anyone from participating. Therefore, to prohibit any girl from joining a cheerleading club in Lee County is discrimination. In the report, an AP makes false statements regarding me. She says that I started a petition and went to social media to try to resolve my issues. This is false. Why is this being allowed in Lee County? How can you lie about parents and kids? Someone has to be held accountable. I'm sorry. Integrity has to start at the top. You are examples to our children. Your administrations is examples to our children. My daughter's senior year is ruined because of what happened on April 12, 2019. Maybe you think cheerleading's not a big deal, but when someone devotes their time and energy for 3 years to their school to be treated this way, it's not right. And it's not just my daughter that was affected, it's hundreds of kids. Scores were changed, they were falsified, and people lied, and you guys paid $10,000 for it. I am asking you tonight for accountability. It's simple. Make a motion.
Please
Is it a
conclude.
club or a sport?
Ray Troy?
Ray Troy, I've been here before talking about the school system. I hate to be talking negative all the time because this state has spent over $2 billion given to private schools with our taxpayers' money. That's $2 billion. You could have paid cash for the schools you're building. That's the state legislature mandates you to give how much money? Would you let the people know later on how much money is in your budget to give to private schools? That includes the charter schools, they're private schools. And there's the school system in Florida has a big fallacy. Do you aware that between 80 and 88% of the people that's in prison right now are dropouts from school? That's a failure of the school system. The state's not doing very well. Just imagine, 80% of the people who drop out of school are in prison. I asked a school board member, she's no longer on board, I said, what do you do for people who drop out of school? She says, well, don't worry about that. We have a good system. It's called fast track. I asked her what fast track meant because I never heard of it. She says, it's called the sheriff's department. That's a form of discrimination. The people who are dropping out of school are poor, usually. And that makes them more so. They send them over there to their little pen that they put them in. They learn how to be criminals. You wonder why you have hate in a community? People that have gated communities are afraid sometimes to even go to bed because they get held up by people that's dropped out of school. So I blame us a lot of it, most of it, on the school system. I've already told you about Abraxas. Their graduation rate is 99%. They take people that has been convicted in the court and train them and teach them, and they graduate, and the judge takes their conviction off their record so that they can go to college. You realize that most of these people that's going to prison right now, they'll never go to college.
Sir, you have 30 seconds.
That's good. Thank you.
You. Anthony Thomas?
To the board, my name is Anthony Thomas. For the record, Mr. Attorney, I don't need a reminder about my time. Let me say tonight, I'm very happy with the first day of school starting, to the bus drivers, the teachers, administrators, the custodian staff, You all did a fantastic job with the first day of school. We didn't have any problems that I can see of. We had a great, successful first day. President Carter said that the people, the American people, deserve a government that is as good and honest as its people. And that brings me to two things I want to talk about tonight. The first thing is dealing with the board attorney. I said at the time several months ago that I believe you guys are opening up Pandora's box and you're going down a road that you shouldn't go down. If you look at the statistics and the dollar amounts, you guys have just about spent more money on your attorneys that are private attorneys than you would have spent on Robert Dodig. We've got to change this. We need to go back to what every other school board, I've been coming to these meetings for 20 years, since I was 16 years old. Every school board has always had their own attorney. You guys are talking to the board attorney all the time, this firm, and the bill and the price tag is going up. We need to change that. We need to go back to having a person who is a school board attorney. The other thing I want to talk about is governance. I know Morgan and others talk a lot about governance. We have a situation right now where the board has really given away their power. Every school board in the past has always had weekly meetings with the superintendent, which gives you an opportunity to tell and get an update on what's going on in your districts. Right now, you guys, I think they're unwisely decided to go a different track where you have a meeting, you have 7 board members, you get 45 minutes to have your discussion. You don't give away your power. I've told Mary Fisher, who's the dean of this board, she's been the chair multiple times. There's a reason why when you look at C-SPAN, you see members of Congress questioning cabinet secretaries and officials in the federal government. They do it in an open format. They get them to get discussions on stuff that's of public policy. We really need to fix these two things. The newbies on the school board, I have some of you get here, I'm glad you're here. But sometimes you don't want to change something that's working. We had a system that was working already. We had a board attorney that answered to the board, that worked for the district. It worked. We had a situation where the board members met with their school board superintendent. You're giving away your power. This is not effective governance. Your school teachers, your administrators, your bus drivers, your custodial workers, everybody is doing a good job to make this school district work better. We need, if we're going to have a world-class school system, we need to have a school board and a governance team that is as good as the people that they serve. So, Madam Chair, please rectify this problem. You started it, we need to finish it, and we need to change it and go back to what we had before. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, there was one other person. I do not have the name.
I believe it's Ms. Fahey.
Thank you.
Good evening, all. It was a wonderful first day of school. It's way too early for me still, so I'm hoping we'll still work on that. I'm just scrambling eggs at 5 a.m. I do want the board, I've asked a couple times now for the board to ask about why we've had so many teachers that were not renewed. Their contracts weren't renewed this year. I've spoken with teachers across the county, and it's in every school. We've lost 17, 20 teachers that were not renewed, and it was not a matter of the teachers failing. The media hasn't covered it either, so that it concerns me. My other concern is the remedial reading classes. My son is a junior this year, and he was put into remedial reading because he has no score on the FSA. Not because he had a bad score, because he has no score. As you all know, he doesn't take the FCAT or the FSA. What he does is to minimally participate, so he allows the school to get their funding by following their rules, but he doesn't generate a score that way. And I've had calls from parents all morning that the same thing had happened to their children, their juniors. My school handled it very well. I was very pleased with them. And Mr. Clayton Simmons called me today, and he was very helpful in working with me. I understand the remedial class is also to help prep these kids for SAT and ACT. I think that's a marvelous idea that we're trying to work for the concordant scores for these kids that did have difficulty with the FSA. But I think it may be a little more boot camp-like than what is healthy for the kids. Sam said he was told they would take this test 86 times this year to make sure that they were able to pass it. And he was very frustrated to be in there. He learned how to read through a special program called Linda Mood Bell, and before he came to Lee County, and I have asked previous boards to please partner with Linda Mood Bell. This is a program that can actually teach our kids to read. Right now, what we've been using, we have seniors leaving high school with a 3rd grade reading level. This is not appropriate. We need to get a program in the district that works and teaches these children to read. I'll talk about the FSA a different day, because that's a lot longer story. But have a good evening, and thanks to all the teachers and principals and bus drivers and staff that made this first day wonderful. Thanks, bye.
Chair, that's all the persons who have signed up or who wish to
Okay.
speak.
Thank you. Ms. Fahey, thank you for your comments. And Dr. Atkins, I don't know if there's a ruling on what happens with students that don't take FSA. How are they placed in reading or whatever? Can you address that?
I can get that information for you and provide it. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay. And then also about the reading program that she mentioned, I don't know
Yes, ma'am.
if you could put that in as well. Mr. Thomas, regarding our attorney, if you go back to our workshop on Thursday, I believe it was, we did discuss the compensation, the bill for the attorneys, and discussed how we're going to handle it going forward. And it will explain everything. The superintendent and the attorneys also gave their input on it. I will say that the benefit of having the attorneys, a firm of attorneys, there have been several situations that we would have had to contract out to a separate attorney firm because we didn't have the expertise in-house. They provide that for us, and it, does help our situation. Would you like to make any statement, attorney?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. And the thing that concerns me, one thing about your statement, Mr. Thomas, was going back. I don't know. I personally feel that we need to move forward. We are not where we were previously. We are a $1.5 billion corporation and have grown expeditiously, and our processes and procedures have to follow in that as well. But thank you for your comments. Mr. Troy, I personally agree that dropouts are our failures. If we need to do something to make sure that they don't. And I believe that our staff and teachers and administrators work very hard and are constantly improving, looking at the data, looking at ways to get what's near and dear to my heart, and that's that bottom 25%, those level 1s and 2s. And there's constantly programs going on. Perhaps you can speak with Mr. Spiro, who's over that after the meeting, and he can explain some of the things that we're doing to alter that. Ms. Hall, on Thursday, we did give the superintendent direction to get us more information on your situation. And I'm not sure if part of that was to say whether it's a club or sport.
The
And
direction that I remember seeing from the board is that the item is closed, and we're not going to expend any more district resources on that item.
Okay. And was that a consensus vote?
That was a
wasn't it?
consensus, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Mr. Daly, Franklin Park, I heard a lot about it. I was on the fence about going to Franklin Park or staying out in East Zone. We have so many schools out there, chose to stay out there, and I will tell you more about that later on. I heard it was a fabulous event, and I'm sure the students all appreciated it. Dr. Robinson, Dr. Candace Robinson James, thank you so much for coming and sharing your reflections of me. I believe there's a book that is here, and we will share it around, and I suggest that the other members, it's a quick read, but it's a powerful read, and take a chance. Maybe we'll take an opportunity for everybody to at least take a look at it. Mr. Navarro, you're still tenacious. And I know that you realize anything that you want in public information, that all you have to do is to leave it with the secretary, and it becomes a part of the meeting record. Mr. Scott, I beg to differ that we don't have feelings or concerns about Layla and Ilana. It weighs heavy on everyone's heart. And the hazardous bus stops, the lighting, all of that type of thing. We are working on a daily basis with cities and municipalities to see what we can do about that. I saw on the news the other day that in Lehigh, we had been told there was $300,000 available for fixing things like lights. And we are working with these municipalities to determine where our main bus stops are for children, and then they are making sure that there is a light there or the lights are working. Superintendent, do you have any update on that?
Well, the most latest is the city manager of City of Fort Myers, Saeed Qasemi, and I had a conversation last week. So he's the latest municipality that we're in discussions with in terms of bringing about safer lighting to our bus stops. We've already had conversations with the county relative to Lehigh Acres in particular, and Cape Coral's already, they've had a head start pretty much on everybody. So that's the progress I've made at this time. We'll continue to work on this issue.
And a few of us attended, what was it called, Back to School Safety? Was that the name of it? I know Ms. Morgan and Ms. Jordan and I were there. And the good thing about it, what was it with
The bar training?
No. It was at Bell
Talking about the
Tower.
block party this
The block party,
weekend.
back to school block party
you were
at
there.
Bell Tower.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And the thing that I personally liked about it is that several groups and organizations came together to make this happen. Sometimes we're very fragmented, and this group is doing something and that's doing something. It was a great example of working together. Children were given helmets if they ride the bike. They had, pictures taken. There were a lot of different safety things and education for them, and there were lots of people out there. It was hot, but it was a very good program. And with that, again, thank you for all of those who took the time to come and address the board. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to do that. Next, we have the approval of consent action items in the agenda under consent. The documentation for action items listed under consent is made available to the board members 7 days prior to the board meeting. We're expected to review all the material, and we have an opportunity to speak with the superintendent with any questions we may have regarding the recommendations. Some of these items have also been briefed or workshopped with the board in advance of appearing on an action agenda. Board members, are there any items for pull this evening? Ms. Fisher?
I have no polls this evening.
Ms. Giovanelli?
I had no polls.
Patrica?
No, thank you.
Ms. Jordan?
No, thank you.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes, I-7.
Okay. And Ms. Morgan?
I have none.
And I had the same I-7, so I will acquiesce to hers. Is there a motion to approve the agenda's consent action items with the exception of I-7?
So moved. Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Ms. Vaughn and seconded by Ms. Fisher. Please record your vote. Has everyone voted?
Hello. Sorry.
Okay. Ms. Fisher, have you voted? Did you vote?
I did.
Oh, okay, there it is. Motion carries 7-0. So we have one poll to address. And Dr. Atkins, do you, well, I'm sorry, well, it's coming after this, yeah.
We need a motion for the poll item.
We did a motion already for the poll.
Not for the pulled item.
Poll item.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I thought we did. Okay, is there a motion for the pulled item?
So moved.
Ms. Fisher, second.
Second.
Ms. Vaughn, and it's been moved and seconded. Let's go to discussion. Ms. Vaughn, since it's your item, would you begin?
Yes, this is the approval of the total cost for East Zone High School, MMM. I have had several questions about this. Many of the questions have been answered, and some of my concerns have been resolved. However, there is one concern that I wanted to go on record stating and maybe getting a, well, I know there are no guarantees, but several years ago, as a citizen, I watched the members of the school board and members of staff pretty much fall all over themselves apologizing for the increases in costs in school LLL. And I know that we, as a district, have, quote, learned from our mistakes, and that we are using a new kind of contract. The one question I didn't get to ask today that I'm going to ask right now is, with the management fees, the general condition, the contingencies, and everything within this, how certain are we, put it at 100%, 80%, how certain are we that when we vote tonight for $98+ million cost, if and when we approve this, that we won't 6 months, 10 months, a year and a half from now, be hearing that, no, there was a miscalculation, and we now have to come up with either another $10 million, or we have to cut back on the number of student stations at that school. What is our level of confidence in this? This is the question that I didn't have a chance to ask, that I'm asking right now, and I'd just absolutely love to hear this in the public forum.
100%. 100%. The difference you had in Bonita with previous staff was a budget estimate. It wasn't a GMP, a guaranteed maximum price. It was a budget estimate. That was a wrong budget. And we had to make some serious internal changes, and those have been made. We created a process that guarantees we have the GMP, guaranteed maximum price, before we come to you for total project approval. So 100%. Now, if you change things on us, there's a cost for that. But right now, the drawings and the GMP are guaranteed 100%.
Okay, that's the question that I didn't ask, and there it is, everybody. It's here for posterity, and I will be supporting this.
So that is, so you saying that as long as there's no changes. So that's actually what happened in Bonita, is there was changes, and that's why that resulted in the increase.
The only change is we've designed this school for the future growth, and there's an area of expansion on the outside of the buildings to attach additional classrooms so that each zone need to grow quickly during the course of construction. That would be what we call an amendment to the contract. We would bring that amendment forward to the board for approval. So yes, that GMP would increase at that moment in time, but it would be at the direction of the board and the superintendent. Your GMP is 100% guaranteed by the construction manager and the attached bond that it will be built per the documents, the drawings and plans and specifications.
Okay, so there's one more question. So did we get a price on what the cost of the land was initially?
We
That's
did.
all I would like to know.
$1.9 million in 2003 for 55 acres, and that's visible in LIPA, the tax records.
Okay, thank you very much.
Other comments, questions? Yes.
I think we've discussed this before, about the 100%.
You good?
Thank you.
No,
I just want to say that I appreciate the work of staff. I wasn't on the board at the beginning of Bonita Springs High School, but I was on the board during some of the hard parts of Bonita Springs High School, and I've seen you work very hard to put a process in place that's tight and that provides me with the confidence that I need to be able to go out to the public and say, I am 100% certain that unless we, a member of this leadership team, changes things, this will be the maximum cost. That's the other thing that we're forgetting that you explained beautifully earlier. We have some built-in cushions here as well, and we may be seeing some refunds coming back to the district as these various categories are audited. Is that a fair assessment?
I can assure you, you actually had credits come back from the Bonita Springs High School because of our value engineering effort.
Exactly.
throughout the course of the job.
I'm also cognizant of the fact that any members of staff, any group of members of staff that come forward in a public meeting and ask for $98 million, you're not going to be anyone's favorite people. So it's hard. This is a big number. This is a really big number. I'm also confident that as you see our neighboring districts come forward with their cost estimates for their new schools, you're going to see that we're right in line, if not better, because they don't have to deal with some of the issues that we have to deal with, like hardening for shelters and mitigation credits and that kind of thing. So I just want you to know that I have confidence as I sit here today. Dr. Atkins, everything we asked you to do, you have done. You have been transparent and open, and you have updated the board. Mr. Rickenbacker comes to us once a month and updates us on construction, and that's the time for us to really be concerned about what's going on. You've updated us every stage of this MMM process. So as much as it kills me to authorize a $98 million expenditure, I understand the need, I understand how we arrived at the number, and I appreciate the professionalism that went into creating this in the most efficient way possible. So thank you.
It's a team effort, and we all thank you, I'm sure.
I do have a question or two. On the information you gave us this afternoon, it was my understanding when I looked back into it that the construction cost for Bonita was actually 62, and the 87 is total cost, project cost. I'm confused with project cost versus construction costs because the 81 that you're showing for MMM is construction cost.
Correct. Let me explain. Total project cost is not construction cost. Total project cost is the value I come to you to get approval for to put every nut, bolt, screw, textbook, piece of carpet into a school. So the $84 million that you approved at Bonita, we had to come back to you and we had to request an increase of $13 million to the board, which brought it to $84 million, was the value of total project cost funding we needed to complete that high school.
And that included land?
That included land, you are correct.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, when you put 87 million versus 81 million, it's, to me, and maybe it's just my layman's mind, it's apples versus oranges, because if you're saying 87 million is including land, FFEs and architects and everything, and the 81 million is the total, on the construction list that we have from the contractor.
I want to explain this chart because unless it's explained to you, you may not understand how it was derived. What we did to create apples to apples between LLL and MMM is we increased the square footage of LLL. We added a 2-year inflation factor to LLL's cost of construction and looked at what our percentages that were coming from our construction manager at risk would have been had we used the same components on building LLL today at the same size. And what we found is that this construction manager was going to be more efficient. So if this is the spreadsheet that you are referring to as a comparison sheet? Correct. That's what we had to do to get a accurate apples to apples LLL versus MMM at today's market.
Okay, and if we just looked at the two, I hate to belabor it, if we looked at the two, and you took out inflation, and you took out, all of those things, and you did say inflation was 6.5 a year. So is that's the figure you use?
It's actually conservative.
Okay, so you said for 2 years, so basically you've put in 12, 13% for inflation. Okay. All right.
Now remember, this was just a sheet to try to give you what is the difference between LLL and MMM. We couldn't do a reference because of the 2-year inflation.
No, they're different enough that you couldn't do that. And please don't think that I do not believe you're doing your job well and that everybody is. I appreciate that. I live in East Zone and Lehigh, so I do know that we need the school. I'm just concerned about the sticker price, as I get phone calls and emails about it all the time.
Well, I might be able to calm your fears a little bit. Just last month, Naples, or Collier County just announced that their next high school coming out of the box, their projected budget is $94 million.
Yes, but if you compare the property costs in Naples to Lehigh, and they're building it for 94?
I think they're building out towards the swamps.
Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate that, but that's not a selling point for me on this. The difference in the two prices, the superintendent did mention, part of that is the adding the floor on the top. So the difference is adding the floor, which adds the extra space, extra rooms, the inflation cost, and what else, basically?
But you've got two factors. If you look at the GMP, hard construction cost, GMP, was $62.2 million for Bonita. The GMP hard construction cost for this school is $81.2 million. That's roughly a $19 million delta.
Okay.
So what you're looking at a difference is, one, you got 2 years of inflation that we're forecasting conservatively at 6.5%, plus you got the additional square footage. The new high school is 279,000 square feet and some change. Bonita was 224,000 square feet.
But we own the land already.
We own the 1.9 land at MMM.
At MMM already.
At purchase, and that was part of the 84 million. The
Right.
11 million for the purchase of the land, and the MMM total project cost was 84 million, which included that 11.
Okay, one last question. On the contingency fees, they did go up, like one was at 2%, now it's at 3%. I understand, and like the portables, and you said that it's contingency in case something comes up. Were those figures increased to give more of a buffer because you ran out and had to come back in with, in doing LLL?
Nope.
So,
Two separate contingencies. You have, and this is the way it's been since I've been here. We always wanted to have a 5% contingency in our construction projects. 2% is included in the GMP, and you'll find that in your GMP backup on the bottom, one of the numbers that make up the percentages. It's 2% of the cost of construction. That is a shared contingency by the school district and the construction manager. That is for any incidentals during the course of the job that we have to provide some funding for to overcome. Now, you'll also see in my total project cost sheet a 3% contingency. That is my district-only contingency fund.
And how much was that for LLM?
We
You didn't have a
We
contingency?
had to cut the budget to the bare minimum bone. We asked for 13 million, and you'll see that it was only 1 million in there. It should have been 2. The other million was used to pay for the portables to be set up behind Estero High School.
So the 81 million that 223943 is on this sheet is, besides what? That's total construction cost?
Right now, the $81,223,943 is the guaranteed maximum price for the construction manager to build this school.
And plus all of our fixtures and everything that we have to do is what takes it up to the 98?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else have questions?
And you'll see that part of your backup with your board action item will be the total project cost that lists each item outside of the construction manager's GMP. That make up that total to the 98 million.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I thought of one other thing. We were told, and this may not be you, this may be something else, about the 7070 bill meant that we had to do COPS in order to go above what the cost per student station was. And we couldn't get any closer to what the cost of student station was because of inflation, et cetera, et cetera. Is that what you were saying?
I don't want to talk at length, but I'll give you a brief understanding. Right now, we are very close to the cost per student station. It's about $32,500 real time right now. We're higher, and there's penalties. And from my understanding, there are penalties that can be incurred if you're not using the COPS, which allows you to go over that amount. If you read an SREF, and the state statute, you can actually be penalized, and they can actually oversee your program.
If you don't use
several
COPS?
years, which means the submission of drawings, submission of budgets. I mean, they could slow your project down to a halt. So I think it's a beneficial way to ensure, we do value engineering. We're continually trimming the job, not taking it out of the classroom, but to make them as efficient and as cheap as we possibly can.
The last statement that I have, besides thank you for all that you do, is moving forward, we tend to sometimes be like drinking from the fire hose when we receive projects, and they're put before us at the point that there's no return. You can't stop it. And I know I've been told that by several staff members, well, this is going to happen, and it kind of just makes me question, well, what does the board really decide? If things are put before us and say, if we don't do this, this will happen, so we really have no recourse. So that's just a personal statement. Thank you for all the hard work you do, and I hope to be at the opening of a new school in Lehigh. We need it.
If I may, before we vote, I have a very different perspective on our ability to be decision makers in this process, because I do believe that estimates have been brought to us throughout the process, 25% estimates, 50%, 75% estimates, and now we're being given the final cost. So we were actually given opportunities throughout every stage of this process to raise concerns and have those conversations. And I feel comfortable where I sit today after having had those. How long has this process been going on so far?
Over a year.
Exactly. So throughout the year, I feel that I've gotten the information I needed. Now, coming up on tonight's vote, again, because of the size of the number, it's caused me a little bit more concern than usual, but I feel that it's been transparent and I've gotten the information I needed along the way. I just wanted to share that different perspective.
And I don't think it wasn't transparent. I think what I'm basing it on are comments like, if we don't do this now, this will happen, it's going to cost us a whole lot more. I do understand that, but that was why I made the statement. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so shall we move on? Is there any further discussion? If not, please record your vote. Oh, I'm sorry, the motion?
Right.
I'm sorry, the verbal vote?
Verbal vote.
Oh, okay, so all those in favor of the motion for I-7 for MMM, please respond with aye and a thumbs up, please, so I can see.
Aye.
Okay, it passes 7-0.
Great. Any Any nays? I didn't see any, but just making sure.
Passes 7-0. Thank you. Okay, included in the approval of the consent items on the agenda is the resolution proclaiming August 23rd, 2019 as Sam Sirianni Day. Dr. Atkins, please introduce any administrators in attendance with a new assignment that were approved in the consent agenda.
Yes, Madam Chair, let me start out with our appointments. Matthew Burbach, Facility Development Programming Services, to Manager, Project Manager Facilities. Next, change of assignment, Michael Amabile, Estero High School, from Assistant Principal to Principal. Next, Elena McCreary, Mariner Middle, from Teacher to Assistant Principal. Transfer and change of assignment, Dr. Denise Carlin, Executive Director in the Superintendent's Office, to Executive Director of School Development. Terry Kennedy, Challenger Middle Principal, to Director, Grants and Program Development. And last one, Candace Alivedo, Curriculum Instruction Innovation Assistant Director, to Director, Teaching and Learning Secondary. I also wanted to just take a moment, if we could, to recognize the partners on the MMM project. We have our architects, BSSW. ELC Engineering. Johnson Engineering. Construction Manager, Sofa Construction. And just to be timely, just wanted to let everybody know at 6:25, buses delivered all students is what was reported to me, so that's good news. Good for a second day.
Okay, thank you. Rather than to ask if anyone wants to leave, all we have left are the board member comments, and we're sure that you would be riveted by what you will hear. So it is your option, though. Board member comments, and let's start with Ms. Morgan. Let's start on that end.
So, Debbie Jordan and I attended part of the orientation. She attended the whole thing, and training provided by I Love You Guys Foundation. It was presented to the SROs. Select principals at each level included fire and police, and they're using the train the trainer model. And the goal is to implement a common vocabulary to be used by all first responders in the county, district staff, and families during internal or external threats to students, staff, safety, and security. What that means is that instead of one person referring to something as a lockdown and someone else referring to a different kind of situation as a lockdown, everybody, police, fire, SROs, principals, teachers, parents, and children will understand exactly what is being asked of students at any point in time. I thought it was a terrific presentation, and I love it because it says that the entire county is taking responsibility for the safety and security of the students in our schools. Comments have been made in a couple of past, public comments in a couple of past board meetings, and I wanted to reference them just so that the listening public knows how things were resolved. The Fort Myers High School cheerleading investigation conducted by outside investigators is closed. It had one finding related to preferential treatment on behalf of the complainant. The court has denied a writ of mandamus filed by Randy Scott to compel the Lee County School Board to produce records and preserve a video and produce an incident report related to the Finance Advisory Committee meeting. closed. I got a couple of things from the Superintendent's Weekly Update, which I am really enjoying. Bipartisan legislative efforts at the state level are underway to fund cybersecurity training in all JROTC programs. Our own JROTC instructor, Jesse Bryan of Fort Myers High School, was a pioneer in offering this opportunity to students within our JROTC program, and obviously they have seen statewide what a value-added program this is. In addition, and this is another recognition of the JROTC program, Lee County instructors are teaching 200 Florida JROTC instructors effective teaching strategies and best cadet management practices at a JROTC workshop in Orlando. That was held. Again, we have the largest JROTC population program in the U.S. Our instructors have been recognized nationally for their creativity and effectiveness in developing and offering relevant programs with a strong character development component. Kudos to the GovDeals Revenue Project that was initiated by staff internally. This district raised more than $782,000 from refurbishing and selling technology. That money will be used for teacher and support personnel salaries. And I thought it was important to give the public information that the superintendent provided to us, and I don't know if you all have had an opportunity to see it. It's regarding our economically disadvantaged status. We have the second highest economically disadvantaged student rate of the largest 18 districts in the state. We have the lowest kindergarten readiness rate of the largest 40 districts. For 5 years, we've had the highest English language learner growth rate in Florida. In 2018-19 alone, our number of ELL students increased by almost 1,700 students. That's a school. We tied for the fourth lowest student stability rate in Florida. So when you hear us talking about the success at our schools, when you hear us talking about what our principals have accomplished, what our teachers have accomplished, please remember the context in which this has happened. Know how hard our staff, our district, our leadership is working on behalf of kids. And just as a little example of how successful we are, to end on a positive note, Dunbar High School recently competed in the National Mu Alpha Theta Math competition held in Las Vegas. They have risen from anonymity to become one of the top math teams in the nation, led by head coach Philip Savage. And I'm just going to read a couple of the topics that they competed in, and I want to know how you would feel competing in these topics. Alpha Chalk Talk, Alpha Individual, Analytic Geometry, Calculus Integration, Calculus Limits and Derivatives, Ciphering, Circles, Combinations and Probability, Complex Numbers, Conics and Analytic Geometry, Logs and Exponents, Open Speed Math, Theta Gemini. I couldn't even tell you what that is, and trigonometry. So, you know, our kids are doing extraordinary things. They have extraordinary opportunities, and given coaching and leadership and resources, they are rising to the top. So, you know, again, we've said, you know, we had a great start to the school year. We had a great finish to the last school year. We accomplished a lot, and I think we are looking forward to another great school year. I normally don't talk, so I'm going to just throw it all out there. I wanted people to know that in the agenda tonight, we approved the Uniform Statewide Assessment Calendar and District-Required Progress Monitoring Schedule for 1920. So if you're interested in knowing about student testing, you can, find that calendar on our website. I always talk about partnering with other people in the county. We signed an MOU with Destination Graduation. It is a partnership with Career Source of Southwest Florida It's a work readiness training program with one-to-one mentoring, academic assistance, and incentives to students to stay in school. So another effort to help those kids with additional resources that we don't have the ability necessarily to provide internally. We are partnering with people in the community who are effective at supporting our students in areas where we need resources. And then finally, there was a, no, not finally, sorry. There was a federal grant request, Student Climate Transformation Grant, to foster resilient transformation, a positive system prevention and intervention opportunities for all students and staff. Again, Ms. Fisher talks all the time about how hard we work to try to get the resources we need to provide services and support to students and staff. And here we are applying for a grant that will expand our capacity to support students and staff. Ms. Trick, I'm probably stealing her thunder. We increased the number of athletic trainers from 3 to 7. Yes, we've been working on that for a long time. Thank you, Lee Health, for that partnership. Thanks to City of Fort Myers and to the Lee County Sheriff's Office for signing on for SROs for the school year. Those are my comments. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, Ms. Vaughn?
Okay, first of all, I am so happy about our wonderful start to this brand-new school year, and thank you to all of you who make that happen, from bus drivers and cafeteria workers through, of course, the principals and the teachers. And as a retired teacher, I can't say former in that I think all of us who have taught can attest to the fact that we still, when we go to stores and we see kids acting out, we feel like, no, sit down and listen. Or anyway, I have a full recognition of the teachers are at this point so tired. This is probably the most tiring week of the school year for all the teachers, and an exciting week in meeting all the kiddos. I often miss it, but then again, I think of all those papers I had to grade, and I'm happy to allow this next generation, or these several generations, to take that over. On another note, I want to go back to something that we have not resolved on this board that I want to bring up tonight. During the June 25th, 2019 School Board of Lee County Action Meeting, I made a motion for the superintendent to make a statement within 3 days giving the reasons, the who, what, when, and why, that board member emails had been covertly watermarked. The motion also clearly stated that the superintendent should include who authorized the watermarking of board emails. After board discussion and public comment, my motion was seconded and approved 4-3. On July 1st, 2019, the board received a 4-page memo of response from the superintendent stamped confidential. Among other things, the report contained extraneous information, including comments about various members of the community who had made, quote, frivolous and disparaging, unquote, complaints about the school district, references to prior Office of Professional Standards investigations, the fact that Andy Brown, the Director of Professional Standards and Equity, quote, chose to watermark, unquote, the documents sent to board members, and the superintendent's statement that he, quote, did not authorize the use of the watermark and was unaware of the placement of the watermark at the time the report was distributed, unquote. I want to be clear that my motion on June 25th was focused solely on the fact that I believed that the covert monitoring of board emails by the superintendent or his staff for whatever purpose was unacceptable. Board attorney legal opinion has advised that the superintendent has no statutory authority to investigate school board members. He may investigate only those under his command. Therefore, I make the following motion. I move to express the board's disapproval of actions of district staff in surveilling board members without their knowledge through the watermarking of documents. I request that within 3 days, formal written acknowledgement from the superintendent that this surveillance was inappropriate and assurances that it will never happen again. So that is my motion that is connected to prior happenings.
I second it.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor, and it's been seconded. Discussion? We go to the public first. Attorney? Do we
I'm
have
sorry,
public-
I didn't hear
There's
that.
a motion on the floor, it's been seconded. Do we do public comment first?
You can.
Okay.
Again, no personal attacks and nothing directed to the individuals. Ready? 3 minutes.
Madam School Board members, for the record, my name is Anthony Thomas. I too want to join Betsy in saying that this is very troubling. We cannot have, as a government, people who are under the school board investigating school board members. And Betsy's right on with her motion here tonight, and this board ought to approve it. But again, Betsy, it's a great motion. I appreciate it a lot. But at the end of the day, you have to have some kind of reprimand to the superintendent and Andy Brown. I mean, I want you to think about that for a minute. Here you have employees, and from my understanding, from everything I've heard about this situation, it was said that one of the board members, Chris Patrica, had actually authorized Andy Brown or told Andy Brown to do the watermarking. Well, I'm talking about the actions of an official government official here. So let me just say here, if that is true, that a school board member is directing staff and professional standards to watermark stuff and do an investigation into board members, that raises real questions. That's not in keeping within the Constitution. The Constitution is very clear. The board hires the board attorney, and they hire the superintendent. If you have board members violating their constitutional responsibility and are directing staff to do these clandestine operations, that is completely inappropriate. I don't know why you keep interrupting me. I don't
You're
know who
adding
you are, but
facts.
you don't even know what.
Sir, you're adding facts to, you're not
This is
standing
not
for the
a
motion.
personal attack. Madam Chair, can we have some order here? I'm simply expressing to this board my displeasure with the actions of people who are not in keeping with the Constitution of the state of Florida. Now, I don't know who you are, Mr. Attorney. I've been coming here 20 years. I don't know what they hired you for. I don't know what your qualifications are.
Attacking the attorney.
Now you're
All right.
attacking the
about-
attorney.
Sir, your time is up.
I'm concerned. My light is still on. How come my time?
Your time is up.
Madam Chairwoman, my time is not up. The light is still on, and I
have
want
no
to
control
address
of the mic.
issues.
Okay, we don't have control of them over the mic. He was timing you. Unfortunately, you were talking about individuals at the
I'm
table.
not talking about individuals, Madam Chair. I'm simply
Okay.
talking about actions of board members
And I believe,
doing something that is inappropriate. He's cut the mic off?
okay, and I do believe we understood, and thank you for your
We're
comment.
gonna have to have a discussion about this because ain't nobody gonna be disrespecting me.
Okay,
and
well,
turning off
Mr. Thomas, thank you.
I don't know what's going on here, but we're gonna do something better than this.
That's a bold move you made tonight, Ms. Vaughn. Thank you for making it. I think what you all need to think about tonight is accountability. You asked for something, it was voted on, it was approved, it was not followed through with. Thank you. Thank you for being the elected official that I voted for that represents me in this county and is our voice. You have got to hold your superintendent accountable. He did not comply with the motion you approved.
Thank you for bringing that motion up. I didn't hear the full motion because I was getting in the car to leave. Been a long day. But I don't believe the watermark issue was ever resolved or answered. And I would appreciate also if you would all give the directive with a date determined, and we can move on from this. So please do it. Thank you.
I come from dirt behind you in Lehigh Acres, Florida. I love my country, but I fear my government. I appreciate the motion, and this is the rudest meeting I've said from an attorney, interrupting so many people. It's a shame. You don't like people saying certain things, so you interrupt them. This is terrible. You need a different attorney.
Please keep your comments in the audience. Are there any other comments? Okay, discussion with the board. Ms. Fisher?
I have no comments right now.
Ms. Giovanelli?
Okay. Well, I am quite a little bit surprised, but I would like to, I have to agree with Mrs. Vaughn. We didn't get an answer. I was part of that being investigated and was accused of things in an investigation that was not accurate information. And I expressed that to the superintendent in an email prior, when the investigation was going on, regarding the 2 whistleblowers, that they were making the investigation about me. I actually had, was looking through I was accused of giving out something to Mr. Rodriguez, and I was looking through his complaint regarding the salaries, and I found where the action plan was actually sent to Mr. Rodriguez, and that in that investigation, I was the one accused of giving him information whom I do not speak to. And I want to bring that on to record, that it has Melissa Mickey's name on it, where the action plan was actually given to Mr. Rodriguez. It's in the salaries complaint that he did to the OIG. And so therefore, information does go out from this district, and unless you can prove who actually did it, you can't just make false allegations. And that's what the whole Mr. Brown's investigation has been. So I believe you have to hold, the only employees we have are sitting at the end of the counter here, and that's our superintendent and the board attorney. And so I believe you have to hold our employee accountable. I'm held accountable to my constituents, and we all are, and I believe that the superintendent has to be held accountable.
Jordan?
Okay. Well, again, I mean, I know we have discussed this numerous times, and I guess who keeps us accountable for what we do? We have people. When the election comes? So,
Yeah.
yes, but in the meantime, we need to be making sure that we are doing what we are supposed to do in our duties, and making sure that whatever we're required to do or not do is where we stand. But someone has to be able to, I don't care if they watermarked me. I really don't, because I know what I am held accountable for. I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm okay with that. That's not going to bother me.
I didn't give out the watermark document at all. So that needs to go on record too.
Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Ms. Patrica?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what Ms. Giovanelli said.
I didn't give out the watermark document.
I didn't say you did, though.
No, I know.
Oh, okay.
She asked what I said.
Okay.
I answered her.
Okay, so Ms. Vaughn, I desperately, desperately, desperately want to be partners with you as a member of the governance team for the School District of Lee County. I desperately want to be partners. I desperately want to be a member of the same team that you're on. And I have repeatedly asked that you please not violate our protocols by bringing original motions to the table without any notice to the rest of the board. I haven't had the opportunity to reread the attorney's opinion on this, and I sit here completely unprepared to discuss the underlying merits of your motion. So just from this point going forward, if you could please give me some notice. I've asked this as professional courtesy. It's what I need. Perhaps it's my weakness as a decision maker. My weakness is that I need time to digest and to research and to really feel confident in the decisions I'm making. And 10 minutes is it's simply not enough for me. So that's the first reason why I can't support this motion. I'm so struck by the fact that we had a wonderful start to the school year yesterday. I mean, yesterday was, even my own 4 kids, ages 12 to 15, sat around the table with excitement recounting their first day of school. Like, what teenage kid is excited about school? And this is what we find ourselves talking about the day after a very successful first day of school. We've got to let it go. There has been absolutely no finding of wrongdoing by the superintendent or by any member of this staff. There is a pending investigation into wrongdoing by a member of this board. So unless and until that is resolved, I don't know why we continue to talk about this.
May I clarify?
No, please let her finish, and then I'll go back to
Okay, because I think she's misunderstood or didn't hear the motion properly.
Okay.
I'm fully satisfied with the information that has been provided to me by the superintendent, and I'm fully satisfied with the information that's been provided to us by the board attorney. I would also say that I think that watermarking is a wonderful tool, and I would think that the use of, we all know that this is a possibility. I mean, I didn't know.
Watermarking's against the law.
Okay.
But
Can you let her finish, and I'll get back to
I know it now that it's a possibility. And so, if that's what's required to protect the district and protect the sensitive, confidential information that comes to us as board members, I'm very happy with the use of it. And obviously, I'm not going to be supporting the motion. I hope we can do a little bit better going forward as teammates.
Okay, and Ms. Morgan.
Yes, so I have the same concern. Asking the board to reprimand staff or the superintendent without giving prior notice to the board, I think is really problematic. There's a reason that in our protocol, we say that we need advance notice of motions because board members need to prepare, need to ask questions, need to research. As this is not a time-critical motion. It's a serious motion, and therefore, I'm requesting, or I moved, postpone the debate or postpone the motion to our next board meeting. And I'm looking for a second.
Second.
So there's a motion, I'll call it a motion to defer
Okay, thank
to a
you.
time certain, which would be the next meeting. A motion to defer does take precedence over the main motion, which is what's on the floor presently. So if, Madam Chair, if there's any discussion to the motion to defer, you could call it.
I would like discussion because I have not had an opportunity to give my statements at all. So if I may do that before we...
Motion to defer would take precedence, and you just move, unless the maker of the motion would allow you to speak to your comments.
I do have comments on the motion itself. I believe that keeps it
Well,
alive.
but, excuse me, Ms. Morgan, would you acquiesce to let me give comments?
Yes.
Thank you. My concern is not even so much with Mr. Brown and the superintendent as it is with a member of our board. I believe Ms. Patrica is satisfied with the outcome because you know the answers, because you were a part of the process. We do not know the answers, therefore, as not being a part of the process, that's what we are asking for. The answers that you already know. And you told us on 2 occasions, one at the board and one in an email, that you were a part and knew what was going on. My concern is the trust level on the board. I'm not trying to say to reprimand one person or the other. I just believe we need to know what you know, is what happened and why, and how are we going to be, and how are we going to be, to confirm the fact that it's not still going on or that it will go on in the future. The statement from the attorney concerning it did state, according to Florida statute, that there was nothing wrong by the staff member. However, if something of this magnitude, if the superintendent feels that there's, something illegal or whatever going on with documents, that he has the right to be able to watermark. However, as it's stated in the information we all received, we are to be informed that that is happening. That is my concern. And I think with the who, what, why, where, and when that we asked before, and I know everybody is tired of hearing it, but if we just get the answers, then, and I would suggest that they come from Ms. Patrica, since you are a member of us. So. I think we are at the point, she allowed me to make my statements. Thank you for that, Ms. Morgan, which leads us to her motion to defer, which is on the floor at the time. It's been moved and seconded, but there's no comments on a deferment, is there not?
She seconded.
To the question of the deferment, that's what the comment would be.
Yeah.
To the time certain.
Yes.
So then, personally, I have no problem with a watermark. And that's personally. However, there is no legally sanctioning of board members by other board members or anyone else unless it's the Commission on Ethics. Mrs. Morgan, I'm going to support your motion to defer because I feel totally unprepared this evening, and I would appreciate having the time to review the materials that I do not have at my fingertips right now. So, thank you. And I just have one other comment. Truth and transparency are imperative to establish trust. We have work to do on that.
Any other comments on the deferment? Yes.
May I ask the moving party for permission to?
I'm sorry, we couldn't hear you. Ms. Patrica, can you speak?
May I ask the moving party to discuss something other than the underlying motion as opposed to the deferral?
Well, no, we need to finish any discussion on this motion first. There was one other comment, and then I can move to her, if that's all right.
I'm not clear on that because you just did, and questions are, there are questions being asked.
The difference,
No.
the difference was is that the chair didn't have an opportunity to comment to the main motion, and that's why.
And Ms. Morgan gave me permission to go ahead and
Okay,
do
well, I
that.
would like to speak to the deferral. I do believe that the deferral keeps it alive. I don't think this should be kept alive any longer, but I am happy to ask any question anybody ever asks of me in a public meeting. No one has ever asked me anything, so.
Okay. Ms. Vaughn.
Okay, to address the deferral. This goes back to the memo on July 1st. I have asked several times, emailed the superintendent to get my questions resolved. One of the answers that I received was that he was working with the board attorney, staff attorney, and the board chair on the question of whether this should be resolved in closed door or open door. This has been one ongoing, what I consider to be a deflection, because nothing ever seems to get done, and we're 6 weeks into this. Secondly, I've been ready twice to bring this up in the past. On one of the occasions, I talked on the phone with the superintendent, and I agreed to put it off. I was going to do this 2 weeks ago. I put it off because 3.5 hours before our 6 o'clock meeting, there was another memo, or at least the promise of another memo coming from the superintendent's office. The reason that I don't, first of all, I don't think it should be deferred is because in my mind, it may not have been a formal putting off of this situation, but through emails and through my correspondence and talking with the superintendent's office, I feel that it's almost to me like, if we keep putting it off, maybe it'll go away. Well, it's not going to go away. Secondly, just to be clear on my original motion tonight, which I think prompted the deferral action, there's no mention about disciplining anybody in here. No mention at all. All it asks is that because the superintendent, according to board attorney legal opinion, has no statutory authority to surveil without our knowledge, that this was inappropriate. The word I used, that it was inappropriate, and I wanted assurances that it wouldn't happen again. That's all it says. In our discussion, we've heard things about, oh, the investigations, and I appreciate that because all of that's a backdrop. Before we defer, may I have permission to reread my motion so that everybody knows what you're voting on to defer? Because I think with all the commentary, people have lost sight of what I asked.
Yes, go ahead.
Is that all right? Okay. I'm asking for the board's disapproval of the action of district staff, disapproval in surveilling the board members without their knowledge, and no, we didn't have the knowledge, of watermarking documents. This is what I request, that within 3 days, formal written acknowledgement from the superintendent that this surveillance was inappropriate. Notice I'm not asking for discipline of anybody. That's not my role. And that it won't happen again. That's it. And I don't think that takes study on this. I think we're all smart enough to remember the attorney's statements. Certainly we've gotten enough of those. And frankly, I don't care if it's irrelevant. If some of you feel like you can watermark me all day, well, I'm sorry. I'm not going to be watermarked when it is outside of the authority of the superintendent and his staff to watermark me.
Or any individual.
And done.
Ms. Morgan?
I have no comment.
No, do you still have your motion to defer on the floor?
Yes.
Motions on the floor should be
Okay.
called.
Right. Motion on the floor is to defer. It's been,
I think it's August 27th is the next board meeting.
yes. The next, so it's been moved and seconded by Ms. Fisher. So this will be a verbal vote. And all those in favor of deferment of this until August 27th meeting, please signify by saying aye, but also show your hand.
Aye.
Well, so, wait,
All
this
those
is for aye.
opposed?
This is for those who are for deferment.
This is for deferment.
So no motion, only for those who are for it, deferring, showing. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'll go with that.
Is it alive?
Okay, and those against?
All against?
Against.
Okay.
So it's 5-2, deferred to August 27th.
Okay. Next comment was Ms. Patrica.
Oh, it's so hard to talk about how happy I am about first day of school after this. You know, it's so funny. I sit here and I wonder, how does this conversation help children? And that's really what's kept me focused through the summer. And what I realized over the past 2 days, I've been over at Pinewoods Elementary School, welcoming students and families as they walk through the door. Pinewoods is the only place that treats me like a parent instead of a board member, so I love going there. I was reminded of why I do this, you know, being surrounded by the kids every day. That's why we do this. And in my estimation, none of the conversation that took place here had anything to do with children at all. And I'm committed to remaining focused on children. So there was a little girl at Pinewoods named Chelsea. She was the tiniest, cutest little blonde little girl who, you know, when the sort of the stampede, and it's not a stampede, that's the wrong word, that makes it sound unsafe, but when the gates are open and the families start to walk in, it's full of excitement and whatever. Well, there was this little blonde girl who was crying, and she was alone, and she was in first grade, and she had never been to Pinewoods Elementary School before, and she didn't know where she was going, and she was crying. And so I just happened to see her. I don't know how I saw such a little person in that crowd of people, but I saw her. And I asked what was wrong, and she told me she didn't know where she was going and whatever. So I took her to the class, and on the way I said, will you find me tomorrow and you show me to your class? And sure enough, this morning, the little girl walked right up to me, and she said, can I show you to my class this morning? And she's going to do the same thing tomorrow morning. Anyways, being at that school for the past 2 mornings has been sort of what I needed to continue to be a member of this team. The last thing I want to say in my comments tonight, and she's gone, Dr. Carlin, did she leave? Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm so sad that she left, because I'm so sad that she's moving on. Because during the half-penny sales tax, I felt like she was my right arm. And, you know, I've given a lot of credit to the superintendent for the passage of that sales tax, but there was also a lot of staff that worked super hard, and I think that Denise is at the top of that pile of people who worked incredibly hard to get this across the line. So, you know, I've told Denise this privately. I'm really sad that I don't get to have regular interaction with her as a member of staff anymore. Of course, I would always go through the superintendent for that interaction, but we're not working on the same projects anymore. And so your gain, Dr. Spiro, is my loss, and I'm happy for her, but I'm very selfishly sad for me. And those are my comments this evening.
Thank you. Ms. Jordan.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to first thank all the teachers, administrators, the staff, everyone that brought us to the first day of this successful opening. Also, I'd like to thank Mrs. Morgan for sharing all that information tonight. Really appreciate that. And I did think that the safety, the I Love You Guys training really was truly a great process to go through. It really showed me what the teachers are going through, what the children are going through, and it was really touching. Also, I had the opportunity to go to the back to school bell tower, which we've already discussed that, and I've attended a lot of the welcome back to the schools, and all the teachers, everybody was just so excited about their opening and ready for the children. And then day one being at the schools. Franklin Park, as was already mentioned, just all the little people going through and high-fiving everybody, double high-fiving. They were just so excited to be there. And the parents were high-fiving too, because the kids were going to school. So that was great as well. And then I had the opportunity of going to Fort Myers Middle, which was great. And those kids were out there about 30 minutes prior to those gates opening and ready to go into their classrooms. But what I did notice there, which I really never noticed before, was the amount of children that did not speak English. And it was kind of sad, because the parents were leaving their kids at the gate, and everybody's trying to help them and speak the language and get them where they needed to be and allowed them to feel safe. And then my final one was at Success Academy, and that was interesting as well. And those children are ready and prepare themselves to do what they have to do and move to the next level. So I'm really proud to be a part of this.
Thank you. Ms. Giovanelli.
I went to 5 schools yesterday, and every one of them were all excited about starting back, and the kids were great. I don't know, but I actually got to take my granddaughter to kindergarten for the first day, too, and that was exciting. She had her shoes on the wrong feet, though, and that really bothered me. I had to get that fixed right away. Apparently, Dad let her get dressed. So, but it was great. Everyone was very excited, and I think we've started a great new year and school year. So I'm excited for all the new staff. Welcome back. It's good to see them. And I know that everybody's ready to rock and roll for this new school year. I had on my agenda was the alternates for FSBA and the legislative. I don't know if we want to, since it's getting late, I don't think that's urgent. We can put it on, can it be actually added to like the agenda and be, as an item or? Agenda item. Or is it just a good of the order?
Let's do a consensus now.
I mean, next time, because I don't think it's urgent to do it now. I mean, so I think we can get
I
everybody
will
get
say
home.
this, I did talk to Ruth Melton, and they are waiting to get the alternate for legislative, and I'll be willing to put my name down for that.
Okay, so,
Can we please put this off? I can't do this tonight.
okay,
I
can
just
we,
can't.
I think we got, it's just 2
As long
weeks.
as we get it by the end of September, when we have the day-long conference for the adoption of the platform at the FSBA, we'll be fine.
So, yeah, okay, so for me, also Thursday, I went, I apologize, I went home sick from the long day of, but I wasn't privy to the end of the conversations you had, so I'm understanding, so cheerleading is considered a club, so why isn't it being treated as a club? That's the question I have, since I don't meet with the superintendent.
I'll get you all an answer. Not being a high school principal, don't know it off the top of my head.
But I think that belongs back to the school board. If it's a club, and we have to monitor the protocols of that. I mean, so that's my question. If since the investigation determined that it was a club, then, and we're not treating it as a club, we're treating it as a sport, right? So then what are we doing wrong? Right, pardon me?
I understand.
So I just think we need to have that answered for everyone's sake, so everybody's on the same page, and I don't think we are on that, because.
Also remember that the board has given me direction to come back with a solution in terms of this whole cheerleading thing moving forward. That would be a part of that solution so that we can avoid a situation like this in the future. So it is my plan to do so. And I think that the issue of club versus sport can be a part of that when I bring that back. But remember, that's something that we're working on with staff right now.
Okay. Because I think that was the whole outcome of the investigation, is my understanding is that it's considered a club, and I think that changes a whole lot of things in that situation. So, that's all I have.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Ms. Fisher?
Okay, thank you. And thank you for honoring that request, because I think it's important for us to have consistency across the district in all of these issues. So, a happy first day. I only went to 2 schools, but I spent lots of time there. And I spent time with the building supervisor and his staff, looking at all of the work that they had done to enhance the curb appeal of the school when everyone came back. I spent time in the cafeteria and took pictures of the food being set out and the kids coming in such an orderly fashion on the first day, and knowing what the routine was. And I met a little boy, and he said, "Oh, miss," he said, "I can't eat my lunch." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because I take medication and it stifles my appetite. So, but I will eat when I get home." And then he proceeded to tell me, because kids tell you anything if you listen, he really wants to play baseball, but his mom works too late and can't take him to baseball practice. So the principal, Mrs. Osterholm at Cape Elementary, and I are going to work on that. Anyway, it truly does take a village. I had some time then at Gulf Middle School and did cafeteria duty, and heard lots of information about how boring summer had gotten and how glad they were to be back to school, except for the 8th graders who, they're just too cool to be excited for the first day of school. So the back-to-school bash at the Bell Tower was another example of our wonderful partnership with our law enforcement and first responder people, and I was very blessed to be able to take my granddaughter, who is a mom, and her son, who's entering third grade, and we had a really good time, and he's tremendously excited about being a third grader. I attended the safety training also, the I Love You Guys, and also the bar training at South Fort Myers High, and was happy to do that. I think that I want to wish my colleagues, in addition to thanking all the staff, because the excitement at the schools was palpable, and I know how hard everyone worked, and what is happening in our schools every day is amazing, considering all of the information that Mrs. Morgan gave us about the challenges that our kids have and that our teachers have to work with. And thank you for that information, in addition to your information regarding the legislative liaison. I appreciate all the work you did on that. So you guys travel safely to Key West, and forget about what happens at Key West stays there, because I want you to tell me all about it when you get back. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll try to be as quick as possible. Number one, advisory board applications are out on leeschools.net under leadership and under advisory boards. This is a plea to all of the community. If you want to be involved, once a month is all we're asking, and you get an opportunity to participate and give feedback for us up here. I tell people every time when I'm out in the community and speak that we can only do what you empower us to do. If you have questions or comments or thoughts, we need to know what those are. So please communicate with us. The advisory boards are a way to do it. There's a little bit of change, a few changes on the application, including the videotaping piece. So make sure that you read it. But we need representation from all areas and all districts.
The deadline.
The deadline is the 16th, which is, I think, Friday or Saturday. So please make sure that you get that done. Okay, this morning I went to a Keep Lee Beautiful meeting, and I apologize to the staff members I met. There were two of our staff there, and I don't know if you know their names, but they were a team that worked with recycling and working with our schools. Do we have a name? Can you tell us? Yes, and they were wonderful, and thank you for saying that so it's on the record. And we talked about some of the great things they're doing. The Lehigh community especially, you've got to see this PowerPoint about people dumping stuff. There was a boat that somebody drug with trash in it and parked it. Then somebody took the trash out of the boat and put it on the ground and took the boat. So, anyway, it just shows the crazy that goes on. SRO, I went to active shooter training with Varsity Lakes and Harns Marsh at Varsity Lakes last week. Very, very, very real and enlightening. And you're in the room and they're doing the drill with the explorers, and you hear the blank gunshots. You walk out of the room and there's kids laying out on the floor, and while they're laying there, he's describing that if this were real, you would be slipping and sliding and all of everything that would be on the floor. I won't be too graphic, but it is something that if you get an opportunity to do, and our SROs and our Sheriff's Department are doing it for the sake of helping our employees understand how real this can be and to really be prepared when that happens or if it happens. Lehigh Senior High School, several of us went to the ROTC opening of the building. It is beautiful, it's wonderful. I was home because that's where I started my career, and I'm so excited to see what they've done in that building.
Ms. Gittens, but are you going to let them know that when we do the zip line and the rappelling, that you'll be
Okay,
first?
I was
'cause you're the
going to
chair.
just stop you. Point of order, okay? She was going to talk about the fact that she said we all should do zip
I
lining.
think we should.
Yeah, right. Okay. We'll keep thinking about it. But it is a great building. I went to several schools last week and then this week. The ones I went to last week, and I talked to teachers and watched them staple things up when the janitors weren't looking and all that great stuff. It really brought back memories. I went to Harns Marsh. Shout out to Harns Marsh for raising their grade to a B with the demographic that they have of disadvantaged students and lower level 1s and 2s. They're doing a fabulous job, so shout out to them. And also to East for getting out of their DA status, and we were there the first day of school to welcome those students. The hard part of that is if you're standing there welcoming students in middle and high school, and somebody comes up and says, "Hey, Miss G," and it was someone you taught that's a teacher at the school there right now. So it is really exciting to know what we are doing. Lehigh Middle was excellent. They had an opening. Went to Lehigh Elementary, Alva, River Hall, Tortuga, South Fort Myers, we were all there. Buckingham Exceptional, if you ever have a bad day, go to Buckingham Exceptional. You get lots of hugs and kisses and smiles and high fives forever. It's wonderful. Mirror Lakes and Sunshine Elementary. I was there on day one, and for some reason, I was given a clipboard and a schedule and a map, and there I was. And my highlight were the kindergartners. We had 2 runners and 2 criers. The one runner was, her brother was in 3rd grade. She was having no part of not going to 3rd grade. So we had to walk her to 3rd grade, then walk her back. It was so much fun, and it was exciting. This one little girl had about 6 people in her family to try to get her to stay in kindergarten. But kudos to all of our teachers and all of our staff. The buildings look wonderful, bulletin boards look wonderful, and our kids are ready and learning. Thank you. Superintendent.
Madam Chair, if
I'm
I-
sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
I skipped you,
No,
Mr. Gabriel.
I just want you to afford me an opportunity to have a comment.
Yes.
With all that we do all the time and all that you do as board members, it's not an easy thing to go through daily and do what's happening every day. I just want to comment to the point that this is your first week of school, and it's my first opportunity to sit here with you and listen to your stories and appreciate all of the benefits and all the efforts that are being made are for a good cause. Thank you.
And thank you for being here. Superintendent?
Just a few items. I think where I went was well documented, and I really appreciate that. I think that was the media really highlighted the great things about the opening of the school day, and I hope nobody takes offense when I said that. Yeah, this is the best part of my job, is being out to schools. You probably would agree with me, but it certainly is what fills my bucket, as I know it does you as well. There are some unsung heroes that I'd like to recognize. A lot of you, thank you for pointing out our bus operators, our teachers, our administrators and staffs at buildings. I greatly appreciate that. A couple heroes that you find here. I know when I leave at night, usually there's a pretty empty parking lot, but if there's cars in it, often they're parked outside of human resources, particularly in the summertime. And that's because of all the processing that takes place. And everything that human resources does then goes over to the payroll department. So they have to process that as well. So thousands and thousands of transactions. One of the things that was mentioned tonight, we had a member of the community that talked about, teachers and reappointments, non-reappointments, and we'll have that number, in October. But one of the things that we really suspect is, the 600 so hires of teachers that we've done. A lot of that is going to be, people that may not. Some of that's going to be people that were at one school and then transferred to another. So we'll have a full report in October. But the important thing is that we have hired, like 1,000 people over the course of the summer, if you count all of the employee groups. But there's also all these other, transfers and changes in pay and all of this stuff that happens kind of behind the scenes. So you see a lot of after-hours, weekends, and overtime that take place. We have the 4-day work week. That doesn't apply to everybody. Maintenance department was out this weekend. They have put in significant amounts of overtime to make sure that our buildings are open, safe, and secure, so I want to recognize them. I did put a little thing in the update about student assignment and the number of students that are processed. We had, like 500 yesterday, 2,000 last week, and we had a pretty full group. Dr. Spiro let me know today that today was also a very, very busy day, although I don't have the numbers there. Transportation, doing a great job. A 6:25 delivery on the second day of school is great. Yesterday was a real challenge because we had that second and third tiers with the thunderstorms. So what happens is you don't want to put kids out into those storms. And so a lot of our elementary schools were holding students, and then that makes them very late. Some of our middle schools did not get buses there until after 5 o'clock, and that's because of the thunderstorm activity. But we were better today. But something that you may or may not be aware of, since August 1st, transportation as a department has made over 1,700 bus stop changes that were requests that came in. So that is a number that will continue to grow through the year, but that's also something that they do that you may or may not be aware of. It was recognized about our SROs, but I think, I really deeply appreciate, Sanibel, Fort Myers, Lee County Sheriff's Department, and Cape Coral. They've all signed on board. And the charter school issue this year with the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act was very challenging, but we're blessed in this community to have law enforcement partners that carry that much. We had a few things we wanted to iron out, but everybody did it very professionally, and it's because they are truly focused on what's right. And I've already seen a lot of them in action in my school visits in the short time we've had here at the start of the year. Last, I did go out to Manatee, and I wanted to point out why I went out to Manatee. Dr. Savage is here doing some analysis of our data, and he looks at how schools do relative to schools that have similar demographics across the state. Because you take a school that's a C school or a B school, and you may not think, well, that's not doing as good as an A school. Manatee Elementary is, in mathematics, probably one of the top, if not the top school in this entire state in terms of how well that staff is doing. Manatee Elementary School. Overall, with ELL, with learning gains, with math gains and all that, they're in the top 2% in the state. Top 2%. That's just one example. There are others examples that I will give to you, but I went out there. They also received an award from Senator Benaquisto, which I didn't know about. They recognized the school she recognized the school for their performance, and I'll get you more information about that because Scott just kind of snapped a picture with me on the way out. But that school and some of our other schools that are considered Tier 3 do extremely well and don't often get the recognition. I was visiting, if you get a chance to go to Trafalgar Elementary, another school that had some really good gains, C to an A. If you look up on the wall as you walk in, we gave them some, Mary was there at our administrative meeting, we passed out certificates. And they've got a whole ton of certificates that they received for what they achieved this past year. So we wanted to recognize the great work that our teachers are doing in the classrooms and our kids. Our kids worked really hard this past year. So I just wanted to point that out. So anyway, it was, I feel really good, really blessed about the opening day and looking forward to a great year. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next meeting will be on Thursday, August 22nd. There will be a board meeting at 9 a.m. as well, a workshop, as well as a briefing at 1. At this point, having no further business to come before this body, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Hey, Ms. Morgan, Ms. Giovanelli, please. This one is electronics, is it? Okay.
Yes.
And while we're waiting, thank you to all of those, especially staff that stayed late. We appreciate all that you do. And it passes, no joke.